Hey, thanks for coming back for part two. I know part one wasn't the most exciting. It wasn't intended to be. I said that from the beginning. None of it's really intended to be exciting, but like any story, there's parts that are, oh my gosh, and if you're not the one that it happened to, it probably is pretty exciting. So there's a lot more of that coming up in this one. In fact, that's pretty much all this is, other than, we got a little beginning and a little end, and but this is part of the beginning. I don't know. I just want to, before I get started with second part of my story, I'm going to shock you. I want to throw a little bit of math at you, okay, real quick. So it's been just shy of 2 weeks now since I released the first episode of I'm Going to Shock You, and it's got a super low number, of views on it. I mean, it's got a lot of views. If you look at it, you're going to be like, well, it's not that low. It is in terms of like a simple math I'm going to throw at you right now. Okay. So this is from a Google search. I know the numbers are fairly accurate, but, give or take, everybody's got an argument, right? So anyway, to make it simple though, I Google searched it. Minnesota has 14,380 lakes. Wisconsin has 15,000 lakes. Iowa has 34 lakes. South Dakota has 584 lakes, and North Dakota has 400 lakes. That's 30,398 lakes, including us and the states that touch us. Now, hopefully this is being watched everywhere and that someone everywhere. But you look at it this way. If just one person goes to each of those lakes each year, that should mean that I should have 30,000 minimum views. In fact, closer to 34,000 minimum views on this, because that many people want to save someone's life this year, or in the future, or want to educate other people, which to me means I need your help. I need your help, sharing, passing the word. I know this is the worst part of doing anything YouTube wise. It's still, I'm not asking you to make it viral. I'm not asking you to do anything. If you do, it does, whatever. But I'm asking you to share the heck out of this. Share it, like it, whatever it takes. Put it on Instagram. Some kids asked me about TikTok. That's one of the only social medias I don't currently do. Put it on TikTok. I don't care. Put it all on TikTok. Contact me, whatever, if you want to help me with TikTok. But I really need your help. The reason I agreed to do the videos and to share my story, and which, if you keep watching after this, you're gonna hear about when I was electrocuted. I'm going to tell you about it in just, a few minutes here into the story. So I want people hurt and dying this year. I want to get it down to zero electrocution deaths and zero electrocution deaths in the water would be, to me, the most amazing thing that could happen out of any of it. So please help me out. Like, share, whatever it takes. Peace. Here we go. I'm just going to try to go straight through it best I can. Once I start, I'm just going to try to go. So we just get done rocking it. We're about chest deep at this point, somewhere right up about here. Arms kind of still out of the water, so just below armpit level, a couple feet apart. And I'm standing closer to the dock. My friend is standing closer to the lift, but still arms width apart. And the next thing, I gave him 5. But we said, yeah, because we did it. We got the lift to move. And the toe. I heard him scream. There's one loud, and it stopped. I don't think I made any noise. But it was I was locked all up in the fetal position. My arms, my legs, my eyes were being held shut, my mouth. I knew I wasn't going to drown. I actually knew what was going on from the second it happened because I was conscious through it all. It never knocked me out. Oh, excuse me. I don't know what happened around me, outside me, my body, but I know what was happening in me. I had so much time, I was able to say, if you're taking me today, God, I'm not going without a fight. A lot of you heard me say that before. It's true, I did. I was under there, and there wasn't any fight I could do. It's the worst feeling in the world. You know when you've been hit with an electric fence and your whole body gives that one tense shock of a lockup? That's hundredths of a tenth of an amp that you're feeling at that point, and the voltage is, I don't know what those are, maybe 120 volts, something. It's not much. Compared to what I felt, that's just a small fraction of it. What happened then is, instead of that release you get when you let go of the fence, nothing let go. And it kept doing what you feel, the squeezing and the power. And I could feel it squeezing the life right the hell out of me. I mean, just my mouth was closed. And at first, I know I was fighting it and I was saying I was going to win. There's no way I'm going to lose. I had no idea what could happen. I mean, in my mind, my brain is just being smashed with fucking with power, and I can't fathom why it won't stop. Where's the damn breaker? I'm thinking, I know enough about electricity, and I hate it, but I know enough about electricity that it should break any second. So I'm thinking, now, with every, it felt like to me, I know electricity has 3 cycles as it goes around, and the way I describe it is I was feeling the cycles run through my body. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, just over and over and over. And each time I was losing strength to where that locking up was felt different. My fingers started to feel like they were starting to kind of be floaty or whatever. And then the next thing you know, this was all, I have no idea again what's going on outside. I don't know. I'm under the water. I heard the scream, and now I'm fighting the pain of being electrocuted because I don't know how I could tell, but it was so different. It was just, I'm trying so hard to describe to you that pain, but the pain, put it this way, it's a pain that after just even maybe 10 seconds of it, you start to realize it's going to kill you. And this part, I doubt I'll even get upset. It's weird. It was the weirdest part. I somehow kind of, in the pictures I put at some point I'll show hopefully, but I somehow drifted over and around a little ways away from where I actually had started, and I was kind of unsure, but mostly just because I was laying on my side. I had just kind of my face, I guess, and my, like, across right here, one arm and about half of my face or so out of the water, but I wasn't aware of it. I was still being shocked while I was laying there. And that's when
I know I know these things. People ask, how do you know when and how? Because we know now how long it took before my wife Christy was able to come down and shut the power off. So, based on when it was shut off and my recollection of what I thought of right before it, that's just how I know how long and when things were. And like I said, I never lost consciousness. And so, keeping track of the time was not a huge, isn't really a huge, I'm sure there's parts I'm screwing up, but, you know, not bad. There's probably just a little detail here or there, maybe talking about a foot apart or 2 feet, who knows. But I know exactly, I can picture it in my mind. I'm trying to give you the best picture I can. So then I'm laying there and a weird thing happens. I've never had it happen in all the accidents and all the things I've been in my life. I started to get at peace. A weird, weird peace that was so calming. It was almost like if you can imagine being a baby, maybe, and you're upset and your mother grabs a hold of you, and it is the most calming thing in the world. Or as an adult, maybe getting a hug from someone when you need a hug. Um, that's what this felt like. It was enveloping me in, and it was a white. People always talk about this white light, and then sometimes you see on shows they say, "Oh, it's the emergency room lights" and things like that. It's not. I wasn't laying in an emergency room. I was laying on a lakeshore. You do start to. I don't know if everybody does. This is my experience, not everybody's. But I began to get very. At first, I was extremely angry. I was mad. I said during some of that stuff, if you're taking me to stuff, I said, of all the stupid things I've done in my life, and this is how I'm gonna die, and at this age, and just wasn't ready to go. And so I I just was laying there, and that now I'm at peace. Now I'm like, well, I'm going. At some point, you feel like you don't have any choice. You don't have no control over your body anymore. I couldn't move my arms. I couldn't move my legs. I couldn't move my neck, my head, but nothing moved at that point. I didn't feel like I was even really in my body. I felt almost in like a middle, like I was starting to leave my body because I knew I was dying, and it was okay. I don't want to, but it was okay. I've been scared to die my whole life, like anybody, but I've been even maybe a little more extreme scared about it. But I can tell you that when it happens, I believe I'm going to be at peace, just like this happened, because I was extremely angry for seconds prior to this, and then boom, I was a complete comfort. The bright light, that white light, was, I don't know, a mix of every white and yellow, I guess you can think of, and put it together in a light. That's the most. I don't know if you have a light or a color or something that you look at that calms you when you're upset, which I don't, but this light would be the one thing I could see calming me, because it's such a glowing, pulling you towards it light. And no, I didn't see any shapes of people or outlines or anything like that. I didn't see a lineup of family and friends hanging out. It wasn't that long, I don't think. I think I was starting to, as I started to die, I think it was maybe only about the last 10 or 15 seconds of the whole thing is when I began to die. So it feels like, and in when I'm talking, it felt like it was minutes of this part, but it was probably seconds, I'm sure. And at that point, oh, the noise and whatnot, all of a sudden, I heard I heard a voice. It was Christy, and I don't even know how. I tell everybody that with everything I had in me, I opened my eye and saw that it was her standing there. And that's kind of what happened. I still couldn't lift my head. I couldn't move. Where I was positioned from where she was at, I got lucky she even saw me, because I was in a really awkward spot laying down, and now she's come down there, and this is what scares me so bad for all of you who are watching this, and I want you spreading this to everyone. She came down and was told to come down by my niece, my 4-year-old niece, because my mother was out in the water screaming help. That's all she knew. So she got down there, and she's turning and looking around, and she's saying, what is going on? There's no sound, no odd sound, I'm saying. There's no smoke, there's no smell, there's no, anything going on that to indicate that there's electricity being put into the water at this point. So she's got no idea. And she could have went right over if she would have seen our friend who was at this point floating vertically like you see in a movie. He was over there and I was over laying again on my side. And like I said, I heard her voice say, what is going on? And she turned her head and saw me as she said that, what is going on? And I just knew it was weird. Right as that was happening, I was fading out, like I was saying, and seeing that light and being at peace and thinking, all right, well, I guess this is it, And the only thing I did feel, see, or whatever you want to say, is right about the time she said, what is going on? It almost felt like I was going towards that light, like I was maybe cool with it now. Felt like a hand pushed me backward, just shoved me. And I went flying back into reality. And when I did, I came to. And that's when I was telling Christy I looked up with my eye. I couldn't lift my head. It was stuck to the ground, still being electrocuted. And I was able to open the one eye and part of my mouth. And I put my hand out and I pointed like that. And you could see right like I was pointing where the power was. And I told her, we're being electrocuted. We're gonna die. Sorry. Pull that plug. She said, this one? And with everything, that is all I had left. I said, yes, I screamed it. And when she pulled that plug, it was almost like I felt like I was part of a train car link. I'm going along with the power at this point. And my body, I was feeling a little less of it, and my body was starting to go, okay, well, we're just going to get shocked to death, And so it was just kind of going with it. And all of a sudden, it was like I was released from that, like my train car got released, and all the other ones kept going. So at first, it was like a boom. When I came to, I didn't really lose any time, but I did get I wouldn't be surprised I had a concussion just from the amount of hit from the brain took just from swinging, and I came to and I'm on the ground at this point, and I now feel, I have pretty good, still can think pretty well, and I realize I think I'm alive. I think she saved me, and so I'm feeling around and everything feels normal, and the ground wise, I feel alive. So she's still wanting to know what's going on, and I'm like, I remember just trying to take over the situation. Again, I know every person who was there. The first one we talked about when my brother was gone, my sister was, all that stuff. So I knew who was around, and I knew I was the only one who knew CPR. And I looked over there and I saw him floating like that. My first instinct kicked in was, I need to get him out of that water. Now, I didn't know necessarily if he wasn't breathing, but he didn't look like it. So I thought to myself, just a quick cursory search, and I was like, well, I'm all here and I'm alive. I'm in pain, but I'm alive. So I tried to get up, and I was able to kind of get up, step, fall over, get up, step, fall over. My calves had turned massive, just huge. My legs were stuck. Like when you wake up in the middle of the night with a cramp in your leg and you, like a Charlie horse, whatever you call it, that's what both legs felt like. And I was trying to walk back another, 25 feet to the back over to the water where he was at. Once I got into the water supported my body, and I was able to walk over to him, and he was only just the lift's distance out, so 10, 12 feet out or whatever. But when I got to him, it was then that I realized my fingers weren't working. They weren't like, nothing was burned or anything like that because I was in the water. But my fingers just were, I could make them do what I'm kind of doing now. I could do this kind of thing with my finger without, until they were there. I knew they were there. I wasn't like paralyzed. But they had, I'm going to like take a drink right now. And so you got to hold the glass like this, It would have been more of, I couldn't grip. So I was trying to grip on his arm to get him up and get his head up, and I couldn't do it. But as a lifeguard, you're trained how to get your arms up under him, and the water's holding me up. I'm able to get out. So then my wife, Christy, came and I hollered, I needed some help. And she helped me pull him back up onto the shore. We pulled him back up as far as we could get him. And I still could tell you right now where that spot is on the shore. And I know there were rocks underneath him, and there was nothing I could do. It was the first flat spot, and I had no more strength left to go any further. And Christy didn't have any strength, so she couldn't hurt. What little bit she helped with was all she had. So I told her to kneel down beside me, and I said, we have to do CPR. And she said, I don't know how. And I had found my spot and started chest compressions at that point. And I was going to lean down and demonstrate. But I said, you're going to have to kneel down here by me and do the breathing. Something's wrong with me. I said, I had no idea it was my back. I had no idea any of that. But it just felt probably tensed up, and my whole body was, all tensed up from the electricity still. So I'm trying to do chest compressions. And I'm also I'm staying calm at this point now. It was weird. Now real calmness came. Instead of me, go do that. I was saying, you need to go to the top of the hill to be able to bring the first responders down. You need to go call 911. You need to go call the DNR. You need to, I thought maybe boat patrols might get there sooner. I was just trying to get anybody I can. Where we're at our cabin, it is not an easy drive for an ambulance or any kind of first. And if they bring the wrong vehicle, which they did, 2 of them, they're going to get stuck or have an issue. And I knew all this as I'm trying to do CPR, but you can't stop. I'm a know-it-all, of course, but I did know all these things too, and I was right in the end. And when we get to that part, but so I'm doing the chest compressions, and and I said, all right, now when I say, I knew that was the most important, so I was keeping going with the chest compressions, And I told her, when I say breathe, I need you to breathe. And I thought that maybe she'd seen enough on TV or whatever. She knew how to do it. She wasn't even close. She just leaned down and tried to breathe in his mouth. And I stopped. And I said, no, like this. I grabbed his head. I tipped his head back. I said, pinch his nose, head back, chest rises. And I made his chest rise. And I said, every time I say breathe, you do that. And I went right back to compressions. So then we got into a rhythm. And I'd tell her, breathe. And, and we were doing pretty good. And of course, neither of us has really ever told this at all. I don't tell this part of the story. This is the only time I'm going to bring it up and tell it, like what happened during it. But I fought my ass off for that kid. I ran back in that water without thinking twice. I was in there with him, standing next to him when he died. And I felt every bit of the power that he was feeling.
And people say it was my fault that he died to this day. But you know what I'm telling you right now? The first thing I did, like I said, when I stood up and I saw he wasn't breathing and he wasn't standing, I went right back in that water after him. And I didn't even check anything. I didn't test or do anything. I barely could get to the water. I pulled him out on my own with a little bit of help. And I did CPR until they told me to stop. First responders started showing up. They had no idea I was even hurt. They were getting out all the defib and stuff. And more of them started showing up. They told me keep going until we say, and then we'll take over. I just said okay. They said okay. And it was finally over for me for a little bit of that. I got a second to kind of release, And I fell over backward to get out of their way because I couldn't stand up. So I just fell over and I kind of rolled to my side and then I just rolled over onto my knees. And I laid down and I just kind of prayed. Not really one for traditional prayers. So I just talked to a higher power, told me, hey, don't take this kid today. He didn't do anything. This was an accident, man. And I yelled at him, you come back. You're not going anywhere, I was told him. They asked me questions, what's his name? How old is he? Luckily, I knew the answer to basically all of it. We had the same birthday. We used to call ourselves birthday buddies. So they kept going, doing what they were doing, but I could see it wasn't working. They weren't getting no reaction. We'd gotten a few gurgles, which I knew were a good sign that maybe some water was going to come out and that would help. At one point, I even tried to roll him over on his side to help him spit that water out when I was doing the CPR. That was the only time we stopped. So now I'm laying there and in my stomach, on my knees, and I'm screaming about help. And about that time, I can't see my mom this whole time. I don't know where my mom went. And now I'm worried because my mom is in the water too during this. But my mom was a long ways out, floating on a tube, and only ever felt any of it when she got close to us at the end, right before the power come off. She started feeling a trigger. She was electrocuted and enough that she had a migraine for about a day or so, a day and a half. But aside from that, she really didn't have. She luckily, thank God, took the very least of all of it. She was kind of able to, she said, to dig into the sand and pull herself away as she started to feel tingling. She said she could feel the tingling of the electricity, as she's pulling herself away. And, and Christy could hear in my voice, as I'm laying there and we're going to, she said it sounded like when I talk on the microphone, because everybody knows you hear me on the microphone, and every now and then, as you're trying to, she said that it sounded powerful coming through me like that, like I was crackly and powered and whatnot. And so then I don't remember why. When I asked for my mom, I wanted them to know. Somebody had to check on my mom, and I kept yelling at them. There was about probably 6 or 8 people around our friend, getting things going and whatnot. And there were a couple of troopers standing around and things. And now the DNR water boat had pulled up to our dock, and
There were lots of ambulances and cars up on our landing area, which I could see up to. And people just seemed to be coming out of the woodwork all of a sudden at that point. At one point, there was no one, and now they're coming out of the woodwork. And again, the only person I can't see is my mom. So I start screaming at him, "Where's my mom? Somebody needs to check on my mom." And I'm yelling at all of them, including the ones doing the CPR. And there's one lady in the front who's got more stripes and stars and whatnot. She seems to be at the head running the whole show. She says to me, "Sir, after we take care of him, we'll get your statement." And I said, "Ma'am, I don't want to give you a statement. I want you to check on my mom." And she said, "We'll get a statement from your mom as well." And I said, "I'm not wanting statements. Somebody needs to see how she's doing." And everybody who was down there by that lakeshore paused. And even this whole CPR business going on down there, and that head lady stopped. She looked over at me and she said, "How many of you were electrocuted?" And I said, "Me, him, and my mother." And she said, "All three of you?" And I said, "Yes." And they tried, and then they tried to send, I keep saying doctors, whatever, the first responders. I'm sorry. I love those people. They were great. Tried to get them over to help me, and I was pushing them away. And I said, no. I told them, I said, "I'm alive and breathing right now, and you make him do the same, and then you can worry about me." And the nurse, that head lady, she said, "Someone has got to be with you." I said, "Fine, you leave one here with me and everyone else takes care of him. I don't want any other help. And someone else go find my mom." And so they came and gave me an update. My mom was okay, other than she was in excruciating headache pain, but she was alive and okay. And she was up actually being loaded into an ambulance at that point. And then so they kept working on her friend, and I could just tell it wasn't. I was hoping, but man, when you see him put them paddles on and clear and wait and clear, you don't want to watch that. You just hope, though. It's almost like a lottery drawing each time. You're waiting. Oh God, no! Every time, I was sitting right there for the whole thing. It wasn't like I couldn't not watch. They finally realized that wasn't going to work, and they needed to get him out of there. So they got him strapped down and on a stretcher and on his way up, and winded up the hill and up and into an ambulance. And I don't really know from there. I wasn't up there, but next was me down on the lakeshore. And I guess I don't really care to tell all the stupid little details because they don't make any difference at this point. I kind of fought him about how I was going to get up the hill. I couldn't walk, but I didn't want to be on a stretcher, and I was just scared and that kind of thing. But I was also kind of a jerk about it. I'm sure everyone's laughing right now because that's so unusual. But they were awesome. They got me up in a thing called a walking chair, took me up to the top of the hill, got me in the ambulance. All of a sudden, the ambulance door opens up, and I'm kind of just getting in there, and it's this first responder, the very first guy. He happened to live just down the road, I guess. I didn't know the guy, but he had a lake home just down the shore, and he heard the call for a first responder and took off and came over. And so he was the first one there, and he came up to me, and he put his hand on me, and he said, "Bless you," and he said, "If he survives," he said, "it's going to be because of what you two did." And Christy was standing there with me at the time as I was getting in the ambulance. And he said, "His chances are much better because of what you guys did." And all of a sudden I was lifted up. I was like, "Oh my God." did it. He's going to be. So the whole way, all I could think then to go to the hospital was, is he going to be okay? My God, the way that guy talked, maybe something changed on the way up that hill, or after they got up, maybe they got him going. I didn't know. I was all excited, and wasn't excited because I just realized that everything in the world had just changed. You can feel that instantly. You're sitting in the ambulance. You're starting to get a sense of, something isn't going to be the same tomorrow, or even an hour from now. And it wasn't. Never the same again. 10 years down the line, and I'm just fighting to get out of this right now, man. Remember, get that power away from the water. Get the equipment that you need. Get things tested. Summer's here. Somebody will die this summer. Multiple people will die this summer. And it will be because of, water electrocutions. And some of them they'll call different things and other things like that. But I know, that they didn't drown. A lot of times they're going to call it drowning and things. They're not drowning. I think most people, for the most part, only reason I say that I don't believe that most of people who are electrically shocked underwater drown is because of the fact that it locked me up into that fetal position, and my mouth and my nose and everything was closed. I wasn't breathing any water. So I don't believe I could have been, unless I would have suffocated just from not breathing. But I believe that it's the power, that the electricity, that the initial shock. And I also think that our friend touched the metal of the lift, because he seemed to have, when we saw him while we were doing CPR and in the hospital afterward, he had an odd-shaped burn mark about the size of a bar of soap right here on his shoulder, right about where, if he would have fell, he might have fell right into the lift, which was steel, of course, like we talked about. So I don't think I hit anything. I just went straight down to the bottom, blocked fetal, knees came up, arms went down to the bottom I went. So I think that's how I got away with not touching anything. And so that's how I got electrocuted. And 10 years down the line here, it sounds pretty weak, really. I mean, it's a pretty weak story at this point, I think. It's weak enough. It's weak enough that people forgot. People are forgetting about it, and it's gonna happen again. I'm scared. Every time I'm at the water. I have to get over that fear. But I still gotta go. Still go to the lake. But there's just 1,000 checks I do to make sure my family's safe. I'm safe. I think that's about all I can. My head's lost right now. I'm all over. That was tough. Yeah. So I guess maybe just to wrap it up, everybody wants to know what caused it, the power into the water. I already talked about what the situation or whatever, but I guess the simplest explanation was obviously you have a shore power cord that runs from your power source, which in our case is our boathouse, out to our boat lift, which is no longer there anymore. And so how it would work is there was about a foot maybe conduit or pole that was sticking up always out of the top of a metal roof, like corrugated tin metal type roof, and then the cable went from there to the boathouse, and it was an outdoor cable, rated for what it was supposed to be. It was on a spring-loaded holder. I'm not an electrician, so I don't know the terms for some of these things, but it was set up like it was supposed to be. What happened was there was some damage to it during a storm that no one knew about, and some sections were getting a little older, and the damage caused some kind of all basically bare spot on the wire. And when we were rocking and moving the lift itself, one of the wheels kind of seemed to have fallen into maybe a hole in the sand right there, or just kind of something, and it caused the lift to kind of tip up like this. And when the lift tipped up like that, the roof, which had previously now been level, tipped like this, and the cable, which was, in a fixed position, now kind of, first of all, the conduit broke from the stretching, and it tipped it downward, and then when it went up, that hit the cable, and then it just stayed there. It never came off the cable, and right where the cable and the roof of the boat lift were making contact was bare wire right on that corrugated metal, and the lift itself was metal, so the power went right down into it. And everybody asks, why did the breaker blow, or what about the ground fault? We had an older boat. We have an older boathouse. It was built, I don't know, when I was a kid, so at least, I don't know, maybe 30 years ago. The top part, anyway. I mean, it's even older than that, but it was all wired correctly, just old, and it happened to have one outlet that was to code up higher, and then another outlet down lower, and the up higher one was always used for a light. My grandpa always liked, and the lower one, I think that's the order anyway. The lower one was a ground fault, and whether I plugged it into it or someone else did, who knows, but it was plugged into the wrong plug just by chance. It was probably one of those things that either me or someone else, just out of habit, you just walk over and plugged it in, and that was the end of it, and that's just how it stayed. And I was the unlucky one to catch the break on it. Well, I shouldn't say that. There were two of us. One of us was more unlucky than the other, but I mean, my situation was the unlucky one to find that out. It just real quick before part 3 is gonna be tell you about the ambulance ride, what happened after that, the helicopter ride. But just to kind of sum up, I'm disabled to this day. This is 10 years later. And I have extensive muscle and nerve damage throughout my entire body. I have severe depression and anxiety, and along with some other muscular skeletal type things. But to give you an idea on the strength on the power the strength of the power I took, that kind of thing. Number one, it killed my friend who was standing next to me, and then number two, it broke my back in 3 places, and was continuing to just crush my spine. Of course, I didn't even know until I was airlifted, and after that and everything, and it just was an odd, my back hurt, but I'll tell that in the third part, and kind of talk about how life hasn't gone good for 10 years, but we're turning things around right now. It's big. This has been huge right here. To be able to just kind of smile at the end feels good. I gotta stop saying but I'm just glad to be alive. I'm glad to be here for my family. I'm glad to be here with my family and my friends. And I'm glad to be able to share with everybody what can happen if you're not careful and if things aren't monitored. So the one thing I can tell you, freshwater people, the best thing I've found so far, I'm constantly looking for ways to keep people safe by that water. Check out WaveLink. They're not paying me anything. They don't even know I'm bringing this up. They don't even know who I am. Hopefully they'll maybe see it and share it with people, and it can help. I want to help sell their product. Their product looks awesome. It's a product that will monitor your fresh water. Unfortunately, it doesn't look like it does salt water yet. So those of you on the salt water on the coast and things, just be careful. But freshwater people, which there are tons of us, and you see Lake of the Ozarks every year down there in the Missouri and whatnot. People die and all those every year from electrocution. This thing monitors it and actually puts a light out on your dock and everything so that you can see it from anywhere. And in fact, one of my things is, like I say, is there should be something when I approach the dock, and it's almost like these guys heard me because you could see if that light's on or not, and the light indicates whether or not there's power, anywhere in the water near within a certain zone. But make sure you go to WaveLink, and I will do my best to do the link in the description. If not, I will find a way to get a link to it. Otherwise, I think it's just wave.link link seems to take you to it. And then also WaveLink, it appears you can monitor it from a smartphone. So if you own lakeshore property, you're not around, and you want to make sure that not after a storm, for example, because that's exactly what happened to ours. We had no idea. We had storm damage on a cable, and we just didn't know that it was like that, and it took an accident to find it. Well, had we had WaveLink, it would have been able to pick up and detect some of this damage, and it's a really good product. So check out WaveLink. Again, I'll try to put the link in the description. And to close it out, please watch part 3. It's obviously not going to be as cool or exciting, but I'll put in a lot of these pictures I talked about. I'll put in a bunch of shots of the cabin. There's not really any pictures of, the accident or the aftermath that I have available. Attorneys and the police and things I've seen them all, and a lot of people have seen them, but there's no access to them, so I can't give you anything like that. But I'm going to put as much information as I can. I'll tell you about my situation now and how life is going from there on out. But thanks so much for watching. Get the power away from any water sources in your house. Make sure your ground faults are all working. If you haven't had your stuff inspected, get your stuff inspected. It's so important. My family lost a life in this situation, and my life was forever changed. Everyone who knows around me was forever changed. Don't let it happen to you. Don't be another one. You will not survive. Who knows why I'm here? But I can tell you this. I fought it, and unless you can fight with every ounce of life you have in you, and you think you can do it in a blink of an eye like I did, you're not going to survive it. Imagine being a child. They're not going to survive it. Get the power away from the shore. Thanks, guys. Love you all.